Hi again, everybody. You're welcome to paper two, if it's your first time. So, this is the single text. It consists of the Shakespeare text, Othello. You know, of course, that Shakespeare is compulsory to answer on paper two, either the comparative or the single text. Most people choose to do it on the single text, and that's why Othello is the overwhelmingly popular choice. And I have a series of video lectures here to help you. Some of them maybe around 10 minutes, some of them a little bit longer than that. But I've broken it down so that you can sort of step in and out without having to spend too long and lose concentration or get tired or whatever. You can come and go and jump around as you wish. This slide gives you an idea of the whole layout. And you see this, the whole pattern of it there is straight in front of your eyes. You can pause if you want to look at it to get a sense of the contents. You'll see them on the website as well. Anyhow, so let's say you've paused and you move on to the slide where I'm highlighting two characters. You know, quite often in a Shakespeare play, there's a main plot and a subplot, one centering upon the main character, in this case Othello, and the subplot often centers on a villainous sort of significant character who maybe undermines the main character. But in this play, they're fused together into one plot. So in some sense, therefore, this play is easier to study, even though the issues can at times be quite subtle and, you know, very demanding of you. So I would suggest, that there's a nice kind of contrast here between the notion of Othello with his performance of power as, you know, a key man, linchpin of the state of Venice, the maritime power. And on stage, his ensign, the one he most trusts, his officer Iago, who puts in a powerful performance, not in a military sense, but in a very different way, both in terms of the plot and the conspiracy, but also in terms of his impact upon the audience and the way he manages the audience and tunes the audience in. Hence, you might think for a moment of my little sort of caption under that photograph and see what you would do with that. So, a visual you'll see a few times of a cartoon capturing the extreme closeness, the if you like, the way almost their brains, their minds, their eyes seem to enter in to each other. All because, of course, the cunning Iago. I think that's quite a good visual to capture what's at the heart of the play. So, it's called Othello, the Moor of Venice. So, I mean, that's significant too. The sense of him, he's a Moor. He's not native to Venice. He's an outsider. He's North African in origin. And that plays a big role, of course, in the unfolding of the plot and indeed in his character and his relationships. So, almost to borrow from Iago, a word in your ear. May I? Thanks. So this cartoon is another way of symbolizing the influence and reaction that is at the heart of the plot. You'll see that a few times, and of course it nicely captures the devilish-like kind of role of Iago as the plot develops. So the play opens quite interestingly with a small phrase from Rodrigo. And it's worth highlighting what he says here. Tush, never tell me. So the very opening of the play highlights the notion of telling, the importance of words. And indeed, if you know the play, if you've read it once already, I've done a lot of it in class, you know I'm not giving you a spoiler at this stage, that it's all about, the way Iago, in fact, tells it to Othello and Cassio and Desdemona and other characters like that. And you see at the end of it that Lodovico speaks the final line, which ends the play by emphasizing the tragic mood generated by the outcomes. But look at a word he uses in it. Myself will straight aboard, almost like abroad, and to the state, that's over to Venice, this heavy act with heavy heart relate. Of course, the emphasis on heavy up there captures the notion of tragedy and the responsibility to the state. But I find the word relate as the final word of the play rather interesting. It matches the opening kind of phrase tell. So in a sense, the play is bookended by two synonyms, two words that mean the same thing. Wouldn't you agree? Keep it in mind. So, who is the greatest teller? The one who relates events to other characters in this drama? Well, you know the answer to that. It's pretty self-evident. That guy portrayed cartoonishly at the ear of Othello. Iago. So, the left-hand column and certain slides that you're going to see contain key quotes extracted from Shakespeare's text. These quotes are mainly in sequence, scene by scene, act by act. On occasion, a quote is connected to a quote out of sequence on those notes to amplify a point. So there's a little example of what I'm saying. On the left, there's an owner saying something, Emilia replying, on the right, some notes about it. That's going to be the nature of very many of the slides, but also the notes that will accompany these systematically. So here's an example of that in close-up. The video presentations, and especially the study notes, as I say, are mainly formatted in this way, and I hope you will find it beneficial for yourself. So you get a sense of it there. I lower myself there. I should always lower myself. Learners are more important. So Desdemona, at one point in the play, says, I cannot weep, nor answer have I none. Tonight I lay on my bed my wedding sheets. She's instructing, of course, Emilia. Remember, and call thy husband hither. Emilia, here's a change indeed. So when Emilia asks Desdemona for an explanation of her husband's behaviour, she cannot explain. As a last resort, she asks Emilia to lay out her bed as on her wedding night. This is probably to revive the relationship by reminding Othello of her innocence. Now, can you see what I'm doing there? I'm showing you a selection of text, a snippet, and then highlighting, amplifying, drawing your attention to some aspects of it that will help you in your learning and therefore in your responding and writing. So I've done that for so much of the play, and yet I've shortened the original text to really a series of quotes, sound bites, they nearly bit me back there, and essential parts of speeches. I guarantee you that this is a really effective edited takeout, all of this, of the play, but it really shortens your journey, certainly in the revision stage. So, sometimes the original text is trimmed a bit or edited to simplify the quote. So that's just another aspect of it, and in the format it helps not to have to use the whole chunk. And likewise in an exam, you can just take a quote and then ... and jump to the next kind of word or phrase you want to use. So it's all about being relevant. So I have a little image here of a chessboard and the shadow of kind of the most important piece, the queen, and then the pawn. But it's symbolic of what happens in this play. There's a one master player, and everybody else is a pawn, and you can guess who I'm implying the master player is. That's how the play sort of operates. So, for example, Othello trustingly places his wife on a certain ship. I don't think you would do it. Iago's ship. Which is rather ironical, as Iago has falsely promised this new bride of Othello to a kind of a lowlife called Rodrigo, a lusty kind of a lecher guy. In return, of course, for loads of dosh, large amounts of money. Nowadays, the cab would be interested in a guy like Iago. He's quite corrupt, isn't he? And of course, this, by the way, is one of many moments that illustrates the theme of trust by actually highlighting something that's ironically sort of an example of sort of trusting somebody whom you should most distrust. As I said, sometimes you'll see the symbol of the game of chess. So it illustrates Iago's strategy, which aims to control and eliminate. Think about that, eh? Control and eliminate. It's something that has a bearing on very many aspects of life and people's thinking today too about the world. So all this format that I've talked to you about is maybe to vary it and stop you getting bored with everything being exactly the same and predictable in format and shape, to avoid monotony. And of course, to amplify certain ideas or images. You know what I mean? To amplify. To say something louder is to amplify, but also in a subtle way, to through description or through commentary, to convey to you that something is important compared to what's around it, etc. Now, jump the gun there. It happens. As long as there's not a real gun on a naval ship, huh? Among the most significant themes are, well, have you thought about them? Influence. I've certainly been highlighting that, haven't I? Trust, deceit, feeling, appearance, and reality, all that kind of stuff. It's quite interesting. There's a thriller element to the whole drama, doesn't it, when you think about it? Jealousy. It's very complex, the way jealousy is kind of developed. And it's might be, for some of you, a harder theme to try and understand. It's maybe the most demanding aspect of the play, of the plot. But I will do my best to help you understand how jealousy kind of develops, how it's instigated, and how it affects the plot. Resentment. Think of the resentment that Iago has against Othello, which I will explore in a while. False appearance. Duty, of course. Othello is very dutiful. The notion of duty is emphasized by the Venetian kind of nobility a lot, in marriage and in terms of the state. Injustice. Now, well, I mean, as a modern audience, we'll see plenty of that, not least to the experiences of Desdemona, my goodness, and Emilia. And of course, Othello, a victim of tremendous injustice. And then the whole notion of revenge. And, revenge is, in this case, there's a revenge that's pursued for very shallow, false, corrupt motives. In some other plays of Shakespeare, revenge is really linked to justice. But here, revenge is really an unjust cause, which makes it rather interesting. Wouldn't you agree? So among the more important issues, if you like, as opposed to the abstract themes, are the way by which places are governed. Who holds authority and how is it exerted in, what formal and kind of regular way is it carried out, conducted, and disrupted. Governance. Race, central to the play. The place of Othello as a Moorish outsider and how that's exploited at a time when such racism was more sort of central to society, more systemic. Although there are many today who are arguing still that race sort of inequality is systemic in certain countries. It's a huge controversy, and in America, the debate over whether there is systemic racism or whether that's going over the top. But that's all very interesting for you to become aware of from the point of view of writing on paper one, as well as getting into this play. So gender role is very significant, modern perspective. So I suppose we have to try and understand the culture of the time, and then within that, how fairly or unfairly are the women treated. Of course, a modern play can radically kind of alter the cultural context to bring up the play into immediate validity and relevance. That's the beauty of drama. Sexual desire is a tool that's used a lot in the play, and there is real and false sexual desire in the play, and it's a significant aspect, a significant issue that's linked to the theme of jealousy. And of course, military alignment with civilian life. That's an issue too. Othello, the military man, how is he able to successfully adjust to a non-military life? And, other kind of thoughts of a similar kind surrounding that will emerge in your study. So the slides and voiceover offer observations on the various themes, issues and relationships, as I say, conflicts and characters, all of that. So it's very comprehensive to help you develop an overall understanding of the drama. Now, I suggest you keep active during your viewing of these videos and keep a journal. Sometimes pause or replay whenever you want to fully take in a point. Pause to jot down a note. I think having a journal where you keep notes, an idea comes to mind, you hear something, I like that, but you won't remember it again even though you think you will. Just make notes of these things, and the very notation of them will help you remember them. Also, of course, I'm going to set you tasks at times so that you interact with the video and kind of really get into the whole space, get onto the stage or whatever, and write for a few minutes or a bit longer. I think that's going to help you develop a personal response and a real sort of sense of ownership of the play. I strongly advise you to take up at least some of those suggestions. Maybe not all of them. You're not Superwoman, are you? Supergirl, Superboy, Wonder Boy. Whatever you can do to help yourself. There's nobody overseeing you. I'm not Big Brother watching you as you study. I'll draw cartoons if it helps too. Whatever you like. There are writing and discussion challenges offered to you near the end of many of the scene explorations, as I say. Enter your responses, paragraphs, or bullet points even. Whatever. Who else is going to see them but yourself, unless you want to share them in the format? Your Othello video diary, huh? Now, in the final slides of many scenes, I offer you a list of a verbal list of the images that were used crucially by different characters. Those images are very helpful to remember and to help you write about the play, and it's to help your revision as well. So you'll get to know them and kind of make your own use of them. So the most significant relationships are, of course, Othello and Iago, Desdemona and Othello, and Iago and Emilia. Goes without saying. Not that many of them. The other ones, as relationships, you don't have to really focus on them too much. So the most fascinating character is not, in fact, Othello. He's very straight. He is what he seems. You get him fairly quickly. You learn a few things about him as the play develops. But Iago is a more mysterious character, full of guile. He's utterly fascinating, and he's the dominant character of the drama. Maybe because of, the notion of hierarchy or whatever the way society was, Shakespeare figured that, to center the play on Othello and give the title of Othello the Moor was kind of going to appeal more to to get an audience in. But really, the play is about this evil, conniving guy, Iago, and he dominates the play. You could easily call it Iago. Through his dark charisma, you see him there on the left in this image, he dominates others, not just of lesser rank, but even those who have more political power or superior military rank. You could liken him to the Joker, that movie character played by Jack Nicholson, various other kind of iterations of it. He's that kind of a sort of an evil, kind of twisted character, utterly unpredictable, able to, almost like a sorcerer, do things that ordinary other people wouldn't. The weaknesses, especially naivety, plus the obligations of social and political rank of other characters, also play an important role in the unfolding dynamic of the drama. And you can pause and think about that slide, certainly when you come back to it the second time, and you will see evidence of this, throughout the presentation. Cassio there is an example of, the impact of Iago further on in the play. He's triggered, and the drink involved, of course, and he's in impetuous rage. But all of this is sort of directed, as it were, in the real life of the play by Iago. So there are endless ways to adapt and direct the play. And even though you study it as a text for an examination, the more you see it as a living drama and take ownership of it in that way, the better will be your ability to respond to it and your enjoyment of it too. So living drama is a concept to remove, if you like, the shackles, on your enjoyment, the sense of being bound by the sequence of the text and exactness of remembering quotes. There's a sense in which it's plastic, it's malleable, because it was written for one time, but you're living another time, and to bring the play into your time is a very valid thing to do. So it's absolutely right that in the world and society that we're in, that we should view all of plays like this and tackle them afresh and with rigor too. Now, as I said, you can adapt the dialogue and tweak it where it falls in the sequence in order to shorten your journey through the study of the play as much as to create a support for your particular interpretation. The key thing is that you what to call ground your responses in reference, which can often be sort of half-remembered quotes, and then accurate quotes. Where you're not certain a quote is fully accurate or you're slightly adapting it, just don't bother using the inverted commas, and then an examiner or anybody assessing you will accept that as a very good reference if it's well used. So I just suggest you pause this slide and maybe spend 2 or 3 minutes looking at it and taking it in for yourself. The same, I just ask you to pause and take in this slide. I've more or less stated the content of it already. But now and again, it is good to pause. We're near the end of the presentation, by the way. So here's an example of an adaptation far removed from the original staging. Wait till you see this. It's not the dog. But would you ever believe it? A hip-hop version of Othello with only 4 actors, where the female characters are become more peripheral. So it's obviously showing the plastic, malleable kind of thing, nature of drama. This went down really well about 2016. Chicago's Othello, the remix. And it really focused upon it, spun it as a tale of jealousy, betrayal and revenge. So just giving you an example to inspire you. Think of the exciting opportunities for technical design in various productions, including that one. So you can read the slide. I'll move myself out of the way so you can read it more perfectly. And after you pause, you'll meet me on the next slide. Oh, one more thing. If you spot typos in my slides and the accompanying text notes, grand. Means you're awake. I'm not completely perfect. And then you just keep going. Don't worry about them.